regulate your senses and mind and your physical activities. You'll find balance. 3, become thoughtful, inquire into a higher level of happiness than what you have. 4, walk your own path, become peaceful, don't get caught up in the hype. Number 5, become friendly and unconditionally compassionate towards others. And number 6, become self-treasure. So I'll end there. Thank you for your attention. So I'd like to invite any comments or questions before we move on. Or realizations. You can share a realization or your thoughts. Or how your week went. Anything you like. Yes?
If when you, in the first part you were talking about that distress will come of its own accord and that happiness will come of its own accord, so where does spiritual practice fit in that? Like why do we chant and why do we follow the regulations?
Okay, so the first part of your question is the principle is that we should not aspire. There's no need to focus on happiness because it comes automatically, just as distress comes automatically. So spiritual practice means to focus on that which is permanent, because that's the nature of this world. There's summer and then there's winter, and they're going to come on their own accord. So it's being recommended that don't try to place your happiness in that thing which is constantly changing. If you put your happiness in something which is already bound to change, then you're going to be an unhappy camper. If you want, that's all I can think of. And if you want more happiness, that goes back to the last point, Atmavan. You have to realize what you are, and what you are is not the physical body which is constantly changing. You're something higher than that. You're a self, your conscious self. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Does the steps 1 through 6, is that in order? Do you have to first achieve number 1 and then go to number 2?
I don't think they were placed in particular order. I think it was kind of a list of how to live in the world and not be all caught up in it. How to live, and because that really, what's our problem? Some problem comes and then we really get caught up in it. We're like, oh, this is, and it throws us off course. And in other words, it's not that the world has problems is the problem. It's that we don't have strength to deal with the problems. So really, that's what yoga, really, my understanding of yoga is, it gives you strength to face reality, and in such a way that you can actually, just brush it off, like, oh, this is, it's just temporary,
So you said there's the two types of yoga.
Oh, no,
sorry.
go ahead. It's okay.
No? Okay.
You're really eager.
Well, I didn't see her raise her hand.
You're eager, so let's hear it. Go ahead. She's patient.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
You said there were two types of yoga, the one that's imagined and the one that's real. Where does Krishna fit in there, and where does the other types of like Hatha yoga and all of those fit in?
There's many types of yoga, but this is definitely an aspect of practice. Krishna, I would just sum it up like this. Don't want to get too technical, but Krishna is the object of meditation. That's why we're meditating. But in order to actually meditate, you have to have balance in your life first. And that when you achieve a little balance in your life, then it's easy to cultivate deep spiritual understandings. So that's why I would say this practice helps us just really achieve balance. How to not be so not have to take so seriously the disadvantages of our in life, and how to deal with them in strength. And when we have that, then naturally, it's not that we're just like maintaining ourselves, but we can actually grow. We can actually grow spiritually the way that we're supposed to. But right now, we're really inhibited because our mind is pretty much out of control. So when we get the mind a little in control, then naturally deep spiritual things become just very easy to grab. Like it becomes really simple. So I would say, Krishna is a deeper understanding of yoga. It's actually considered the highest form to meditate on Krishna. But this definitely is part of that process. I can help us to. That was my presentation.
Yeah, that's important. It's not that Hatha Yoga is something different to Krishna consciousness. It's just one tiny aspect of it. And when devoid of the ultimate goal, then it becomes just something looking like a separate thing. But actually, it's the people who are teaching it or practicing it, who are I guess ignorant of the goal, of the direction which that train's heading. Then they isolate it, but it's not an isolated thing.
You're practicing contentment.
I was just going to ask, how do you constructively deal with emotions? It seems like emotions can just run array. And if you are surrounded by negativity, how do you stay content?
That's a good question. So emotions are an aspect of the mind. That's what we're dealing with. Worse than physical suffering is mental suffering. It could drive you crazy. So what's being recommended is, we have a physical body, we have a mind, but above that mind is the intellect. And see, that's really what we need to do. And in yoga, they call it buddhi yoga. It means yoga of the intellect. In other words, we need to make our intelligence the driver. Because right now, the mind's the driver. And the mind's like, what's a good example? The mind's like a little kid in Toys R Us. The little kid's like, oh, look at that, I want this, I want that. So if we follow the mind, just imagine if you gave the little kid a credit card in Toys R Us and he's going to go crazy, spend all your money, and then you're going to have to suffer for it. So you have to regulate him, right? You say, no, you can have one toy and that's it. So you're like the parent, you're the intelligence for the child. So similarly, we have intelligence, and we have to be the parent for the mind. We have to tell the mind, no, don't do that. And the first step is hearing, just as you've heard tonight. By hearing tonight, now you've gained something, which you didn't have to pay for. It's free. That's the beauty of it. And you can take it anywhere. It doesn't take up any space. It fits right here. And now you can apply that wherever you go. So you have to use your intelligence and tell when the mind is acting crazy, then you have to use your intelligence, and the intelligence pretty much gives us the ability to detach from the situation. And that's what brings us peace of mind. Because, in other words, if you don't detach from a situation which is bringing you all kinds of trouble, then you just keep going more crazy. So the intelligence tells the mind, nope, it's not in your interest to keep touching the fire again and again. And the mind's like, oh, but it's so pretty. I want to keep it. And the intelligence is like, no, you're getting burned. You got burned once, you got burned twice. So you have to know when you're getting burned in life, and you have to detach. And that helps us. And we have to have strength to do that. And if you're going to have strength alone, forget it. That's why we come here. That's, we all sit together and we talk about these things. That's really the purpose of Krishna Lounge. We give each other strength. And when we have strength, then we can go back into the world and we can do what we need to do.
Gary, can you elaborate on the difference between living yoga and non-living
Lifeless yoga?
Lifeless yoga.
Well, I would say then putting yoga as one of the meaning of yoga means union.
Yeah.
So when two planets align in astrology, they call it a yoga. So when two people connect, they also call it a yoga. Hey, meet me at my house. That's a yoga. Mm-hmm. Let's do yoga. Okay, that's one kind of yoga. It's a combination, a union. So lifeless yoga means I'm going to, that's what I'm doing right now. I really want to go to India, so I want to save some money. So right now it's not a real yoga. It's lifeless. It's a union, but it's not actually it's not actually, I'm not actually there.
It's the difference.
It's not realized.
Right, okay.
So lifeless yoga means like, yeah, I'm going to be so enlightened. I'm going to be so detached, and I'm going to be so like the lotus. Nothing will affect me. But one person comes along, God, you look stupid, and then you're just like, you can't say that to me, and then you freak out. So you're not. So living yoga means that you're prepared. You got. You have these 6 rules, and you can even write them down and carry them with you. And like, all right, now here I'm gonna practice. In other words, you're practicing it. You're trying to live it. It's not a weekend thing, but you want to incorporate it into your life so that you can get the benefit, so that you can benefit from it. And that's really why we're into yoga. And we want benefit, just like people want to make money. They want money. They want to benefit from the money. So this is a different kind of money. It's a spiritual money.
Okay. I was going to ask you though the difference. So the difference is living it as opposed to talking about it or thinking about it. But what you said earlier was that there was also a difference between when someone had the right intention, the reason they were doing it, like they're just going through the motions or whatever, and the real, unless you had the real goal in mind. So like, where does that fit in with that?
Okay, there's different levels. Mm-hmm. Some people are really good at it, and some people just suck really bad. So the person who sucks really bad is like, yeah, I'm such a yogi, but then, like I said, somebody just like looks at them wrong, and their minds just stir for the rest of the day. There's people like that.
Yeah.
Really. I know people like that. They're good, but somebody does one thing, their whole day's ruined. That's a lot of people actually. That's what happiness is, a commodity right now. It's not. So it's difficult to come by. But you see, one who starts taking it more serious is like, all right, I just got insulted. Now I'm going to do yoga. I'm going to be indifferent to honor and dishonor. Whether somebody praises me or makes fun of me, I'm not gonna. I don't care. It's not gonna affect me. It's not gonna affect my day. And to that degree that we're able to just bounces off us. To that degree, we're getting good at yoga.
Okay. Thanks
good?
for the.
Okay. Thank you. Coral G. Okay. Go ahead.
So the last step is like to discover oneself as like the treasure, discover true self and everything, and disassociate ourselves with like identifying with what we have or what we do or our emotions, things like that. What are some practices, some specific things I can practice, to better understand my true self, my own personality, my true personality, my true traits, things like that?
That's why I'm here. It's like, because I want I want the association of people, right, who are doing that, So I would say that's the first step. Is like, you gotta, if you want to be a businessman, then you gotta hang out with the businessmen, and you gotta learn the ropes. So if you want to make like a lot of personal advancement, then you gotta hang out with somebody who's spiritually advanced, So there's many things to do. The first thing is hearing. Hearing is actually the greatest form of yoga, believe it or not. We downplay it because we don't pay money for it. But actually just the ability to hear, like we talked about Kapila. Kapila's like, these are sacred texts that people have been talking about for thousands and thousands of years. In other words, it's so valuable that people handed it down for thousands of years. We can't even imagine that. Like people hand an heirloom down for like a few generations. I mean, this is something that's been handed down for thousands of years, and it's documented. So we have to realize that there's a lot of value contained here, and just by hearing it, then we begin, and we learn, and we all gradually learn the things which help us advance. We did the chanting, we chant the mantras. So these are very powerful tools that anyone can do. So. But hearing, studying knowledge, and that's what I would say.